It's good that Ma'am Wila decide to get at those slots.
Hey guys, welcome and welcome back to our channel. In today's vlog, we're going to talk about how we purchased our land, how much we paid for it, why we chose the location that we did, and everything in between. But before we do that, we're going to get in a time machine so I can tell you how we even got to this point in the first place. So just a little bit of a family history on me. See, I'm Korean and Filipino. I am third generation. My dad's second, his mother first, and then her parents before her. No, her grandparents before her, right? No, those were her parents. Her parents, okay. On my Korean side, my great-grandfather, he came to Hawaii, I believe in the year 1895, because at that time there were many pineapple farm owners that had come from America, taken over Hawaii, and then they started plantations. They started pineapple plantations. And so what they did was they advertised all over the world, like Korea, the Philippines, Portugal. They basically went all over the world and they advertised to all the men of these countries that they needed workers. You can imagine that during that time, a lot of people accepted. So my great-grandfather, he was one of them. But the problem is that when all these men showed up, it was all men, and they didn't have any women from their respective cultures at all there. So, you know, it'd be like a boarding school, like an all boys boarding school, nothing but dudes. They started to get restless, as you can imagine. This is to my understanding, told to me by one of my aunties. But what happened was, from these men's respective countries, these matchmakers, that became a new position. What would happen is these matchmakers, they would accept applications and photos from families that wanted to find their daughters a husband. They sent all these files to Hawaii. Then what would happen is all the men, they would look through the photos, they would look through, like, I guess, like the biographies of all these girls that would talk about them, their families. If they were interested, they would then tell the matchmaker in Hawaii, like, here's my file, here's my picture, here's background about me and my family. Can you let this girl's family know that I'm interested? So what would happen is these parents would receive all these files from, you know, interested men, review them, and then make their choice, and then send their daughter over to Hawaii, and then they would then get married to these men. So what they were called is picture brides, and you can Google this. And there's even a Japanese film called The Picture Bride that you can find online, and I actually watched that, and it was pretty interesting. That's how my great-grandparents got married. And when I found out about that, I even asked my auntie, like, were they even in love? You know, how did that even work out? And she told me that they were more in love than any couple that she had ever known. So that's good. So then, you know, my great-grandparents, they had children, my grandmother being one of them, so she was first generation. Then where Filipino got into my blood was my grandmother met my grandfather, and he was Filipino. I don't know anything about him. What I do know is that they were together, I think maybe like a year. He left her, and then he went on to start more families. I guess there was a few. So yeah, so then, you know, there's my dad and my Auntie Pam. They came out of my grandmother and my grandfather, and then came me. My father, he relocated to Southern California when he was 16 years old, then met my mom, and then they had me. So that's where I come in. So now, kind of bring you up to speed. 7 or 8 years ago, I just felt, I think, like just like a big hole in me, because I had no connection with the Asian side of my family. Everybody else stayed in Hawaii. They're there. I'm in Southern California. There's no internet. There's no video chat or anything like that. So I wasn't close with them at all. What I did was, I got really interested in going to Korea. And I started watching as much as I could on Korea. I even went so far to find a personal teacher to teach me the language, which I really didn't get far with that. It's really difficult. I think if I would have lived in Korea, I would have had a better chance. But I went to Korea. I went there, like 7 years ago, I think. And then 2 years later, my father and we went back together for my second trip. And then, fast forward a couple years after that, I started getting interested in the Philippines. And I knew nothing about the Philippines at all. The culture, nothing. Food, nothing. So I got on YouTube and I started looking up videos about Filipino food. In doing so, I ran across a channel called Turquoise Sunset. That channel is John Blanco and his family. The video that I watched at the time that they had made that, I don't know if they were living in the Philippines. He was no, they were in the Philippines. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so they were in the Philippines, and he just kept talking about how natural, how free it was, how the people were just amazing, the food was great, everything. He was just like a big champion of the Philippines. Plus he had married his Filipino wife. After they just described the Philippines, they had grabbed my attention because I love Hawaii. The way he described the Philippines, that sounded like Hawaii. The people, the food, the location, the tropics, all that. I love it. But it's super expensive there. I think it's it's the most expensive state of the United States. So, I'm completely priced out of there. I started doing more homework and tried to deep dive as much as I could into Philippines. But at that time, there weren't really that many vloggers that were coming out of there. I mean, there were a handful, but none of them that I was aware of, none of them were married to a Filipina except for John Blanco. So he started talking about all the attributes of a Filipina and, why being in a relationship with a Filipina was what it was to him, which was everything short of amazing. And, or except short of him, I don't know how you say that. But the way that he described it, he got my attention a second time. That's how I ended up getting online, looking, and then eventually meeting Wila. So fast forward now to the year 2021. Yeah, 2021 is, that was the year that I found the Armstrong channel. And I think they've been around since 2019. I think that's when they met. I discovered them in 2021. I don't know if it was in the beginning or the middle, somewhere around that point. In watching their channel, they had made the announcement that they were going to be leaving Manila, that they had found or they had bought property in the province, somewhere 8 hours, 10 hours north of Manila, and that when they got there, that they would talk all about price and all the details to go along with that. So there's a channel, Tom and Ruth's Philippine Adventures. Tom has a video about an expandable house. Check that out. And he found on Alibaba I don't know what the square meter is on it, but it's an expandable house. It comes folded up in a shipping container, and then they delivered it to him, they offload it, and then it expands into 3 times the size that it arrived. And so he talked about how, I think at the time, it was probably the equivalent of $12,000 or $13,000. I was like, what? You can actually buy a house for that cheap? Because at that time, I just wanted to, after doing all the homework that I did on the Philippines, I was all in. I wanted to leave the States, go to the Philippines. The price was right. All I needed to do was just save up over here in the States, just keep working, and then I could go over to the Philippines. I knew that I couldn't own land, but I knew that I could do like a 50-year long-term lease on land and that I could put a home on top of it. So I just figured go to the Philippines, get into a land lease, buy an expandable house. Now all I got to do is just figure out how to earn an income and just sustain my living there. That's where my head was at. Eventually Willa and I met. Willa and I met, and then the goal was to bring her to the United States on a fiancé visa. But COVID hit. Everybody was shut down, so there was no point in even submitting applications because all government offices were closed. Once I found out that those offices had come back to life was when Willa and I submitted our application. Well, I think it was maybe just a week or two later. I'm not sure how this went down. I'll have to ask Willa. Either Donna had advertised that property was available. Oh yeah, when I heard what the prices were, I told Willa, I'm gonna buy you a plane ticket. You're gonna fly from Cebu to Manila, and then you're gonna go to the province there where they're living, look around and see if there's any land available. I then told her, contact Donna, just send her a message, let her know that you're gonna be there, and ask if you two can meet up. So when she did, Donna was she was just super cool. She was like, yeah, come up, we'll drive you around, we'll show you what's available, you'll be in good hands. We were totally stoked on that. The first week of December, Willa makes her way up to Vigan. Donna and Richard pick her up. They take her back to their place. They all got along so well that it just worked out that Willa was then going to stay with them for the duration of her trip there. So here's how we get to buying the land. And this is where it gets weird for me because it's a totally different process than what happens in the United States. Richard and Donna, they take Willa around, and there's 3 properties that are available. There was a 600 square meter, I think there was a 900, and then I think there was 2,000, something really big. I wouldn't want to deal with property that big. So they take her around, and they're with the same real estate company that Richard and Donna had purchased from. I think they said at the end of the day, after they showed her all 3 lots, they asked her, okay, what do you want to do? What's your choice? And at that point, I was entertaining, the idea of purchasing property with Willa. We had discussed that. At this point, this was just a reconnaissance mission. Willa was just going to check it out, just to check out the market, see what the prices were, see what the community was like, schools, shopping, everything. And then she was just gonna leave, give me her take on everything. And then we would then consider, that area as just one of our options. In my mind, I wanted to kind of go to a handful of places, check them out, check out the prices, check out the community. Same thing that she did in Vigan, just kind of do a comparison, make a choice, focus on whatever we thought was the best location, go over there and kind of put some roots down. So yeah, Willa was asked, ma'am, what would you like to do? And they told her, oh, I'm getting messages. Come on, people. Ma'am, what would you like to do? And then they kind of talked her through some details as to how the process would work. And then Willa gives me a call. Okay, so they want to know what we want to do. And I'm like, what do we want to do? What do you mean? You literally just saw those locations a few minutes ago. We were in a position to buy, but, I was like, this isn't what we're trying to do right now. And I was like, just tell me anyway, how does this all work? They said that, if we wanted a property that we needed to put a deposit down. I was confused because here in the States, when you look at property, there's usually, more than one person looking at the properties, which I'm sure there probably was. Here, you look at the property with your real estate agent, and then you tell your agent if you're interested or not. If you are, then you tell them how much money you would like to offer, and then they call up the seller's real estate agent, and the seller takes all the phone calls, takes all the takes all the bids from all the interested buyers, and then they make a choice as to who they want to sell to. So Willa told me, they said that if we're interested in one of these 3 properties, we give them a deposit. With that deposit, that gives us control of that property for 30 days, and then we get to decide within that time if we want to purchase the land or not. If we do, then we move forward with the transaction. If we don't, we then forfeit the deposit, and then we walk away from the whole deal. I was really interested at that point. I still wasn't in the market to buy property at this point. It was still us just doing our research. When she told me how much the deposit was, I was like, okay, let's play. Let's play ball. How much? How much is the deposit? 5,000 pesos. That's 100 US dollars to control property for 30 days. And during that time, it would not be shown to anybody else. Nobody else could put a deposit down on it. That was a no-brainer. You know, Willa had money with her. She put the deposit down for $100, and then we had 30 days. So I would say by the following day, my mind was secretly made up because, you know, I told you that we would tell you why we chose Vigan. The truth is, we didn't choose Vigan. Vigan chose us. And Vigan chose us because I got to give props to Richard and Donna. They did all the due diligence. You know, they already bought property. They went there. You know, they live in the community. They saw the schools. They saw the markets. They saw that there was low crime. And they told all of us about it. You know, it was because of that, you know, I just jumped on it. You know, because it's one thing to just think about doing something. It's one thing to dream about doing something. But when, you know, what do they say luck is? They say luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Well, Willa and I, we were prepared. When the opportunity hit, life's too short. Life's about the journey. That's why we say that. Life is about the journey. I don't know that Vigan is going to be our ultimate destination, but right now it is. Like I said, secretly, you know, by the following day, I had already made up my mind, and Willa had too. And so I think by day 3 or 4, we were like, let's do it. Obviously, Willa has to buy the land. That's exactly what she did. I think that it was $1,300 a square meter if you paid cash, and then 1,500 square meters if you wanted to do a 2-year. I just checked out the what I'm going to put on the screen, and so what it was, 1,300 pesos if per square meter if you were to pay cash, 1,400 pesos for financing it for 1 year, 1,500 for 2 years, and 1,600 for 3 years. And I think 3 years was the max. Is that the max? Yeah, 3 years was the max that you could finance it. And when I say finance, that's not with, it's not like it's a loan or anything. You know, you just have to come up with the monthly installments, and then when it's paid off, it's paid off. It's basically like layaway. But you do have to put down a 20% deposit, and then you go monthly from there. Yeah, so those were the available terms for purchasing. Willa and I, we don't like to be in debt to anybody, and at that time, she had the budget that she had saved up. She had worked super hard and had saved for a long time. You know, we made the agreement that she would buy the land. I would take care for the majority of the house construction. We opted to go for cash up front. We wanted it done. We just wanted to get it out of the way. And then at that point, we could focus working towards getting funds for the house build. I'll get to the price in a second, which you can already do the math. 1,300 times 600. That's how we got to that point. From my great-grandfather working from Korea to Hawaii, to discovering, you know, my roots in Korea and the Philippines, to meeting Willa, to having a dream, to then having an opportunity. That's how we got it. But we paid, I don't remember what the price was. in pesos. I want to say it was like 800,000 pesos, maybe less, but it was the equivalent of 15,000 US dollars. So 15,000 US dollars for 600 square meter. How big is that? Around 1/8 of an acre, which is the average size of a lot for an American home. Not too bad. Not too bad at all. Yeah, the deal went through. Willa paid cash. Everything was signed, sealed, and delivered. I will tell you that when it comes to title, it takes forever. Here in the United States, what, don't you have that in 30 days, if not sooner? Over in the Philippines, you're talking, I mean, it can be done quickly, but you have to have a team behind you. Under normal circumstances, you're talking 1.5 to 2 years. But we are able to build on it. We purchased in December of 2021. I'll be out there in early 2023. So shortly after my arrival, we should see title go into Willa's name. Now we got to build. That's a whole nother dream. I've gotten a lot of headaches over it because, I mean, obviously budget is everything, and you can have a bunch of ideas in your mind as to how you want things to turn out, but tell me in the comment section if anything has worked out the way that you planned it, because there's always something. There's either obstacle, lack of resources, anything, time, it all adds up. At this point, Willa and I have kind of gone through a lot of different ideas. You know, first it was, we wanted like this Italian villa, something like that. You know, once you get pen and paper and you start doing the math, you take a look at your budget, then you take a look at, you know, the cost of things, and you take a look at, we still have to sustain our lives at, you know, an apartment. We still have, you know, we still got to eat. We still have, you know, we still got to live our lives. Plus we've got to build this house. So, you know, we've been thinking about it with a lot of care, but right now we are wanting to do a Hawaiian style home. And I think it kind of fits in a little bit better with the Philippines, but we can talk about that in another video. Well, that's it for today, guys. I want to thank you for joining us. I really hope that answered questions that you may have had. And if you have any other questions, if I wasn't clear on anything, leave me a question in the comments section below, or just send me a message and I will be glad to answer you. Thanks again for joining us, like I said, and we will see you in the next one. Bye, guys. Take care.